about that.
Okay, starting now.
Okay. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I know it's been quite a while since I've been able to share anything or meet with everyone. But today I was asked to talk about domestic violence awareness, and I'm not going to do too much. I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. I know a lot of people have a good idea of understanding, but sometimes we need those refreshers and reminders. So that's what I'm hoping I can do today. Um, so I wanted to kind of touch on just MMIW and the connection to domestic violence. Um, in doing MMIW work, uh, we have to ask many questions when we get asked to help any kind of situation, may it be an individual or a family looking for help. Um, but one of the first questions we ask, and it often surprises people, is if the disappearance is voluntary. And some people will like, what do you mean by that? And one of the things is we have to explain to people is a woman may be missing because she intentionally decided to cut ties to family and friends to avoid future harm to herself and loved ones. Um, a woman may have decided that the safest option is to leave and place herself and possibly her children as well beyond the reach of her abuser. And sometimes this is shocking that we ask that, and sometimes it offends people that we ask this. But the reality is that sometimes people don't know their loved ones are being um, abused or are the victims of domestic violence, and that's always something to keep in mind if you suspect something, um, that it could have been going on for a very long time, and there is a lot more to deal with than just the physical aspect. Um, Another question we ask, going with that people don't know somebody is dealing with this, is are they missing because of force or violence? And this one too has often created some offense with people because they find it just so hard to believe that somebody they know and love and know so well, or maybe close, that they may be dealing with domestic violence and they have no idea. I've seen this with siblings and best friends and so many children. You don't know that your child may be experiencing violence. Even teenagers deal with dating violence. But the harsh reality is that many Native women who are victimized by domestic violence disappear, are abducted, or are murdered by their abusers. The Department of Justice reports that Native women are stalked and murdered at higher rates than other populations of women in the United States. So this is like it's stated, it's a very harsh reality that is something that we deal with, and um, it's just something to keep in mind. You have to know that may the violence or abuse that somebody is enduring, it may not be physical, but it can escalate. It can be forms of, you can see people fighting or somebody speaking harsh to somebody, and it can always escalate in a moment's notice. And that's just something to keep in mind. And stalking comes up a lot. I've personally, in my own life, I don't think I've heard of stalking in communities more than I have in our American Indian community. Um, so many people have talked about these experiences, and this is just one of those red flags to look for that could end up in a very dangerous situation. Um, those are just a couple of the connections from MMIW to domestic violence. Um, but I didn't want to just focus on MMIW. I wanted to do those reminders of domestic violence in our community. And so I have here listed some of the red flags of an abusive relationship. And each one of these, I have 5 listed, but each one can be broken down even more. What physical abuse looks like, what verbal and psychological abuse looks like, what cultural abuse looks like, which is something people don't think about. Sexual abuse or stalking. Yeah, I mean, I don't know we have time to go into any of them. But if there are any questions too, I can always come back and go into a little bit of what that looks like. But these are just some of the things to look for, with your friends and family and your loved ones. My main goal today, I wanted everyone to really look into to seeing the resources that are there, the phone numbers that can be called. Some of these things, you have to keep in mind. You may not be the one dealing with the violence or the abuse, and you may want to help somebody. But one of the things you have to remember is that no matter how bad the violence could be or the abuse, any of these symptoms of the abuse can be, that person is not going to leave until they are ready. You can argue, you can fight, you can pray, but they will not leave until they are ready. It takes a victim of abuse 6 to 7 times to attempt to leave before they leave an abusive relationship. I mean, there are people that have been dealing with this. They have grown children, and now they finally feel like they can leave. And these are just the reality of dealing with domestic violence and abuse and an abusive relationship. I've seen it personally in very close people where I feel like they're so intelligent, they're so this, they're so that, why can't they leave? And it's just, there's so much when it comes to abuse. There's these huge psychological factors that people have to keep in mind. And sometimes the more you try to persuade them to leave this partner, it keeps them there. They have this level of comfort in this routine, in this habit that they're dealing with. And that's something you have to keep in mind, that has to be broken in some way. And sometimes it just takes that long. But like I said, I can go back to any of these if anybody has questions of understanding these. So I did, like I said, I wanted to make sure that people see these resources. And I encourage anyone to write these down, to screenshot it, take a picture, and put them in your phone. You may not be dealing with direct domestic violence yourself, but I'm sure you know somebody that is or has or will be in the future. And you could be the only person that has these resources and may offer these resources to somebody. I've had flyers with stuff and people are like, I don't need those. And then I'll say something like, but somebody does. And it always kind of startles people to hear that. But it's very true. We all know and love somebody that will be dealing with domestic violence in their life. As Native women, we are 7 times more likely to deal with violence in our lifetime. And, the third leading cause of death for us is murder. And when any kind of domestic violence deals with strangulation, that is the telltale sign that this person may not make it out of this relationship. But one thing I wanted to remind everybody is, if you are in danger, to call 911. It's a given. People think like that's the simplest thing, but when you're in a crisis situation, you're not thinking straight. And this is one of the things you need to be reminded of, is to call 911. And also, if you call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, they can connect you and direct you to the nearest domestic violence shelter closest to you. And this National Domestic Violence Hotline can be called 24 hours a day. This is something that you can put in your phone too, just to have on hand with somebody. You can remind people that are dealing with DV that this is something they can input in their phone, maybe change the name, just help them be discreet and understand the importance of having these connections. Also, I have 2 listed in Dallas, and my sister Snowy, she's had a lot of experience working in the domestic violence realm. She's worked at women's shelters and just done a lot of work. And I asked her the best resources that she would share, and she mentioned the two that are listed, the Genesis Women's Shelter and the Family Place, with her emphasis on the Genesis Women's Shelter. That's why I have that one listed first. But both of these have 24-hour hotlines, and those hotlines can be used in emergency situations. So you can call them in an emergency situation, and you will be able to be in a safe space that night. Say you call, you will be sleeping somewhere different in a safe place away from your abuser. But also, something that is often overlooked is that these shelters are not just emergency only. You can call these numbers, these hotlines, these emergency hotlines, and even ask for outreach services. So these women's shelters or these domestic violence shelters have outreach services. And outreach services can entail coming up with a safety plan for somebody to leave a situation, which that requires a lot of thinking and planning for a lot of people, because a lot of children are involved. People have children, and a lot of the time people are under the impression that domestic violence shelters are just like homeless shelters, which can be a very unsafe place at times, especially for children, which they're not. They are not the same. They are not crafted in the same way. You may possibly have a roommate in a room, but you will not be dealing with the openness and the amount of people in a homeless shelter. So that is something that somebody in a crisis situation, they kind of refuse to go to shelters because they have that idea. But these shelters have these outreach organizations that can help you plan and help you get resources. I know shelters have programs that will get you back in school, get you a job, get you new housing, but you have to do the steps, and that's a part of the outreach. And also the last one I have listed is Love is Respect, and that's for teens and young adults, because our teens do deal with dating violence. And Love is Respect also has, you can text. So if somebody is suspecting dating violence, maybe somebody can talk to them and offer this, and they can check it out on their own. But it is a very, very good resource to help younger folks understand the impact of dating violence in their young lives. But yeah, I think that is the goal. I wanted everybody to have these resources and understand the need to share them with people and your loved ones. Yeah, if there are any questions, I can answer those. But other than that, I think that's everything.